Hey everybody, it's Michael here from Replica Airguns with another tabletop video review. Today we're looking at the Umarex DSX 45. This is a spring piston BB pistol, and this is the tabletop review. I won't be shooting it in this video, but I will be mentioning a little bit of how I felt it did. I did shoot a couple 13-round magazines out of this pistol just to see how it would do, so I could make some basic comments during this tabletop video, because I'm sure everybody wants to know how it actually shoots. It's a very low-cost BB pistol. Even in Canada, it comes in at around $29 Canadian, and in the US, it comes in at around $19 now. It is listed in both of our US and Canada stores over at replicaairguns.us for the US and replicaairguns.ca for Canada. I believe right now it is in stock in Canada. I don't think it's in stock in the US, but that can change at any time, so just check the links in the description if you're interested in buying it. Now, like I said, I was pretty impressed with the performance of it. I had extremely low expectations based on the price and the fact that it's a spring piston gun, so you basically pull the slide back in a similar manner how you would cock a semi-auto pistol. With this gun, it does take a fair bit of force because the spring is heavy, so maybe even more force than a traditional semi-auto pistol, even in a real, say, 9mm or 40 cal. The spring is fairly heavy, but it certainly is doable. And I think because it's a little heavier, it shot pretty good. The BBs did tend to get to the target pretty quickly, quicker than I was imagining they would, even from 30 feet. Of course, there was a bit of a delay, a little more than a CO2 pistol, but at 20 feet, you barely even noticed it. So if you're going to shoot this gun at 20 feet out, it'd be just fine. Even 30 feet, it would be just fine, to be honest. Now, in terms of accuracy, well, we'll get to that when I do my field test shooting video, but it seemed to put BBs exactly where I pointed it. So right out of the box, it was centered well, and it was shooting on target, and it wasn't flinging BBs everywhere by any means. All right, let's get into some of the specifications. It's an almost all plastic build, so there is some metal internally, obviously the spring, obviously the barrel, probably some other internal parts, but pretty much what I can see on the outside is going to be all plastic. Now the hammer looks to be metal. That's the only thing I can see on the outside that looks to be metal, is that hammer, okay? Even the trigger is going to be plastic. Oh, looks like the safety. So the slide catch, which actually is the safety, looks to be metal. Obviously some screws. So externally, you're only going to see a few things: the slide catch safety and the hammer being metal. Even this magazine is literally all plastic, okay? So even though it's full size, it's pretty lightweight, and this gun comes in essentially at only around 1.25 pounds. Now, in order to cock this gun, you do have to pull that slide back, and it's totally doable, but it is fairly heavy. Now, there's no BBs in it, but I am going to shoot it towards the ground just to make sure, because I did have BBs in it at one point. So once it's cocked, when you cock the slide back, the hammer comes back and it's ready to shoot. You can decock it. Now when that's back, when the spring is actually engaged, the hammer comes back and sort of rests on the firing pin, I imagine, the internal firing pin. So it won't shoot, but you could bump it and actually shoot it if you notch, or if you hit this at any, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I can decock it, okay, but it rests on the actual, I guess, firing pin. So if I push it, it fires. So you want to be careful with that. You kind of can decock it so the trigger doesn't work, but if you bump that, it's going to fire, so that could be dangerous. Now, because it's spring piston, it is a single stroke cocking mechanism. There's no internal air chamber, so you don't pump this gun up. It's just relying on the spring piston mechanism. It shoots 4.5mm steel BBs. Again, no CO2 required. Now, you could call it a repeater or a single shot, because you do have to actually work that slide between shots, so it could be a repeater. You don't have to load any ammo in it because it does have that 13-round magazine with a 200-round hopper. So you call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it a single shot, but you could refer to it as a repeater. It does have a smoothbore steel barrel. It does shoot up to 240 FPS, which I do believe it is capable of based on my shooting experience, just briefly with it. It does have fixed sights, a post in the front and a notch in the rear. They're all black, so there's no white dots or any fiber optics on them. The total length is 9.25 inches. And it has about a 4.5 to 5 inch barrel. It was hard to find actual specifications on it. I kind of measured it out, but I did see a reference to it online at being 4.5 inches. It does have a single action only trigger, so you do need to pull that hammer back, and you will need to cock it each time, so move the slide back as well to get that spring piston engaged. Again, it weighs 1.25 pounds. It does have a 13-shot full-size magazine that holds 200 rounds in the hopper. So between the 13 rounds, so there's a follower like you would traditionally have on a 13-round magazine, that when you run out, you can point the gun in a certain way, in a certain angle, and then you can load up that 13-round magazine-fed portion with the 200 rounds that are in the BB reservoir. And I'll show you that when I show you the magazine. Now the slide catch acts like a safety, so it's kind of neat that they didn't put like a switch on here for a safety. It's well integrated into the pistol, making it look more believable. It also has an accessory rail underneath the barrel area there for adding accessories like a laser or a tack light or something. Now this product is distributed by Umarex and it is made in China. And it is, if you haven't already noticed, a replica of a modern, more tactical 1911 in more of a double stack configuration based on the thickness of the grip here. So that would be more like a double stack as opposed to the traditional 1911. 1911s are big, heavy guns, but they're actually fairly narrow. I would say this is slightly wider overall than an actual 1911. Even along the top, 1911s are fairly thin. They're beefy because they're all metal. They generally weigh a good couple pounds. So they are heavier than your modern pistols, but they're quite thin. So, you know, take that for what it is. You can get 1911s in double stack magazines. So you'll find that the pistol grips on the double stacks are going to be wider like this one is. Now it does come in, unfortunately, this clamshell packaging. But, you know, what are you going to expect for $29 Canadian or $19 US? It's got, you know, decent markings on it. So you know what you're getting here. You know, got information like the 240 FPS, which is apparently 73 meters per second. Spring piston, just to let you know it's not CO2 powered. 13 round capacity. You have this, you know, steel BBs, 1.177 or 4.5 millimeter. On the back, it's going to be probably a lot of the same. But by the way, you can see there, that's kind of how the drop-free magazine looks. And on the back, it's essentially all the same. You do have this 200 round reservoir, 13 round magazine listed there. Inside the almost indestructible packaging, you're going to have to dig out the manual that it comes with it. And this is, you know, going to show you all the information, some more information about what's already on the packaging. Inside, you're going to have the destructions or instructions on how to load it, right? All the different parts of the gun. You have, you know, where's the safety, how to work the safety, fire it, where the hammer is here, and then instructions on how to load it, basically, essentially how to load it. And then on the next page, it actually shows you here that you have to pull the slide back. Now, my experience with the slide was the very first time that I cocked it, it was like really hard. It was almost like it was stuck. And I was like, how does this thing even cock? Like, it felt like I was going to break the thing because it was plastic and I didn't want to break it before I even reviewed it. So I'm pulling the crap out of this thing and I'm like, why is it not moving? Eventually it broke free, or whatever you want to call it, and it came back and it worked. And then after that, it's been very smooth. So if yours is really tough to work that first time, just give it a go. Just really pull hard back and it will break free or whatever. I don't know what it was, but it just was really hard that first time. It was almost stuck, it seemed. So if that's the case with yours, just you know, pull hard until it goes, and hopefully yours doesn't break or anything. All right, let's look at the other side here while we get into more of this. Okay, so let's take a good look at it. We're going to just take the magazine out and stuff. We're going to look at it externally here, get it nice and close. You know, it's a cheap gun. It's, you know, it's plastic, but it looks pretty good. I like that your all your warning instructions they're black, so they match the frame. They don't stand out and look horrible. You do have a lot of markings that are right in the plastic. They're not just painted on or anything like that. So, you know, there's a lot of detail on this gun when you really look at it for such an inexpensive gun. And also the slide, you know, some of these really inexpensive guns, they're just two halves that are kind of screwed together. And so on one side, they always have these little screws that go around them that look really fake if you're looking at it. None of that's happening here. So you actually have real screws holding two sides together in the grips. The slide actually has to go back and forth. So it's not a two-piece so much slapped together gun. There's obviously going to be two pieces here holding this portion together. Now, I haven't taken this piece out here, but this is how you would if you want to take, I'm sure, the slide off. I'm not going to do it in this video, maybe another video one day, but it's just an inexpensive gun I'm reviewing here. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. I've already talked a lot about it already. So, but I believe you can take the slide off, probably get in there, but the spring might fly out, or who knows what's going to happen if you do that. It doesn't show you in the instructions. I would just leave it alone. It's an inexpensive gun. You don't need to take it apart for cleaning or anything like that. This is your safety, okay? So that's fire, that's safe. It's nice that it looks like your slide catch release, because then you don't have like a stupid looking switch on off switch type thing like you find on a lot of inexpensive guns. And it's also metal, so it's one of the metal parts. You've also got your hammer, which you can decock, right? And you've got your rear sight here. It's just a notch with a post in the front. You do have a integrated, ejection port that looks the part. It makes it look real. It's obviously not a real ejection port. You don't need to eject BBs. The barrel is recessed a little bit, as you can see here, so enough to give it that realism. And again, the trigger isn't really a 1911 trigger. They're usually more, they're different. Well, you know what a 1911 trigger looks like. This is more like a Beretta trigger or some other gun, or Glock trigger or something, but it's not really like a 1911 trigger. You do have your magazine release here. So we're going to pop out the magazine. Underneath the magazine, you have this hopper where you can load all your BBs in. And then basically what you do is you can load it up in the gun. So you point the gun down so that essentially this is on an angle slightly pointing down. And then what you do is you pull out this piece, lock it back, and then you just shake, 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 shake. And what ends up happening is BBs will load in here, okay, while it's in this, so essentially this position pointing down. And then when it's all loaded up, you just push that forward, back in, and then you have 13 rounds ready to go. And all you need to do is cock it and fire, cock it and fire. So you can actually do that pretty quickly. It's not terribly difficult to do that. So you can, it's not an action shooter by any means, but it does perform pretty good. And once you get kind of fluent at it, it works pretty well. All right, so I think that's enough showing around. There's your Picatinny rail. Okay, there's your trigger area, trigger guard. Obviously, give an idea of the thickness. Overall, it's actually a pretty decent looking gun and a pretty decent performing gun. All right, let's get into some of the pros and the cons, and we'll wrap up this review. It's a super low cost gun, not only to buy, but to shoot. You don't require any CO2. Just need to buy a bunch of BBs, 4.5mm steel BBs, and away you go. And it actually shoots pretty good. The BBs got to the target a lot faster than I was expecting them to. At 20 feet, you barely notice it. And they were shooting really well centered out of the box. Where I aimed is where they went. They didn't wing left and right too much. So hopefully when I do my field test shooting video, we'll get a good idea of what it actually performs like. Now, it is a pretty decent looking replica of a modern 1911 semi-auto pistol. Again, it looks kind of like a double stack 1911 tactical version. And it has a Picatinny rail for adding accessories if you want to add something like a tack light or a laser. Now the trigger is single action only, so you do need to cock it, and that happens when you pull the slide back automatically. It has, I would say, a medium take up with a light to medium trigger pull. It's nice that it has that full-size magazine that holds the 200 rounds in the hopper with the 13-round feeder that is spring-fed. The safety is worked into the slide catch release, which adds to the realism in terms of looks. And the recessed barrel also helps adding to the realism. And I like that it actually has a hammer that works, that you kind of can decock if you're careful. Again, remember, it can fire on you if you bump it, but that hammer is also metal, which is nice. All right, some of the cons. It's an almost all plastic gun, but for $29 here in Canada, what do you expect? There will be some metal parts again internally, like the spring. I'm sure some of the firing mechanisms, the barrel, that hammer is metal, and that safety slide catch release is also metal. Now, it does take a little bit of effort to cock it, which is required for each shot. And again, the sights are non-adjustable and they're all black with no white dots or any type of fiber optics. So if you're shooting on dark backgrounds, it might be a little bit hard to do so because everything's going to blur together. And if you have smaller hands, this is a pretty beefy gun. It's not heavy by any means, so it's not heavy to hold for smaller shooters, but in terms of the pistol grip, it is a bit more bulky, so keep that in mind. All right, again, this item is listed in our Canada and US Replica airgun stores over at replicairguns.ca for Canada and replicairguns.us for the US. I'll put links in the description if you're interested in buying it. If you're interested in other products, air guns, BB guns, airsoft guns, pellet guns, blank guns, and other accessories, then check out replicairguns.ca for Canada and replicairguns.us for the US. I also post written reviews with additional photos and sometimes some more information over at replicairguns.com. So check out our blog over there for articles and reviews. All right, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, take care.